Okay. My name is Alan Gilles. I'm one of the co-facilitators of Southern Oregon Cloud Connection now. The other one is Kathy Conway at the table back there. It's my task, my very pleasant task, to introduce to you our speaker. We, SOCAN, and probably many of you have been familiar with the work of our Children's Trust for a long time. They came into existence in about 2010. And they've been working with kids to try and secure governmental action to protect the environment. And what they have found is that when the constitution of a state, for example, has in it the guarantee for residents of that state to enjoy a healthy environment, the kids are much more successful. And Mel will talk about that, no doubt, as she is introducing the topic. I have known Mel for quite a long time. She is, as you can see from the screen, she is the campaign director for the campaign to institute in Oregon a constitutional amendment to guarantee Oregonians the right to a healthy environment. Many people think surely Oregon already has that, but it turns out we don't. Mel has been coordinating the campaign for many months, and SOCAN, I think, was one of the first organizations to jump on board with OCERA in their effort because of our understanding exactly of what our Children's Trust has been trying to do and what the difference is in the outcome is when states have the right to a healthy environment in their constitution and when the states don't. So without more ado, let me introduce Bennett Martin, who will start the listening tour. This is the official start. We had a sneak preview at Mountain Meadows this afternoon, which went incredibly well. So you have some competition.
Thank you very, very much. By a very quick show of hands, I'm not sure if this is better or if you would like me on the mic, but I can also speak louder. Check, we're good? Great. Another show of hands. How many of you have heard of OCERA or the right to a healthy environment or green amendments or things like that already? So there's a good working knowledge of what we're doing here. How many of you have been in Oregon either, since your birth or childhood, and you left and came back for a very long time? A show of hands.
What's a very long time?
A very long time is over 30 years. And how many are relatively new, like me? I've been here since 2020. Terrific. I will introduce myself more fully in my story. But the reason that we are here is to get a really good understanding of the people of Oregon, no matter how long you've been here. Everyone so far that we've talked to or heard from has a story to share regarding what they have seen, what they remember as being what the environment was like, what it is like now, and I'm not sure how many of you have heard about the baseline theory or generational amnesia or thing. I think the better term for it is the baseline issue, which is in every generation, you grow up in a certain environment. That's just the way it is. It's acceptable, and that's your knowledge base. The generation before you probably has seen the environment in a little more pristine condition. And the generation before that has a different baseline, right? And then the younger generations have a new baseline. This is their normal. That's an important factor to embrace. It's the reality of one of the reasons why sometimes it's difficult to find and amplify the passion that should be in this issue. Because a lot of people, don't get it until something is in their face and it hurts them or affects them personally. That's the nature of environmental advocacy, in my experience. And it's also an important reason why the older generations are so important, not just important, critical to the entire movement, because you remember, not everyone here, but you know what I'm saying, because the older generations remember, okay? And you have a story to share with the younger generations of how things used to be. How else are they going to hear that outside of movies or TV shows? They need to hear that stuff from you. And that is another reason, a big benefit of going out across the state of Oregon and touching base in person as much as possible, connecting with real Oregonians, with real experiences, real stories to tell, so we can really root ourselves in the truth of what's going on out there. So I hope you understand your position in this whole movement is not just, oh, we need to do something for our future generations because it's the right thing to do. It's not just ensuring that your legacy is something that you have done your darndest to help out with, but you are also important storytellers for the big picture, for what we are losing right now as we go forward. So with that, we kind of know the answer to this question. We have a strong suspicion that yes, OCERA does need something like this. That's our mission. It's why we exist. However, the ground truth listening to itself is what will help to securely authenticate our mission. So that is why we're out here doing what we're doing. I'll go over the format in just a bit, but before I do, I wanted to give a quick summary of what the constitutional amendment approach is all about. What is the right to a healthy environment? And why did we focus on this? From the big picture review of the problem set, we have dysfunction. Lots of people we just read the news, we watch what's going on, everything's upside down, mostly because the people count less than the profit-making industries and businesses that are okay with hurting people to make a profit. That's upside down, which is weird because everyone knows that the public officials know, the politicians, leaders, whatever you want to call them, they know they've taken the oath of office. They've read it before they've taken it. They understand. However, their reality is the political system answers to big money. Why? Human nature. And the nature of politics. Nature of politics.
Citizens United.
Nature of politics is based on bad law, where it says if you want to get a seat, you have to do X, Y, and Z. It's not about the merits. It's not about anything else. And similarly, outside of the legislature, we have agencies making decisions based on, political signals or pressures or whatever you want to call it. Their hands are tied too. When they came in, they're brand spanking new out of getting a science degree, right? They want to go help people. They want to serve their state, they serve their country, and do good things. And they find themselves not really able to do that because of the mechanisms of the system itself. Regulations, enforcement of regulations are still a political matter, unfortunately. Okay, so all that to say, it's not necessarily the government's fault because there are issues that we can't change, like human nature, the nature of politics, and the nature of corporations. It's their legal duty, their fiduciary duty to maximize their profit however they can, to the fullest extent of the law. That's their duty. They could lose their jobs if they don't do that. That is another reality we have to embrace and step out, zoom out, and understand, okay, so what is the deal? Whose fault is it? It's the system itself. So that's why we are focused on the system. How do we fix the system? That's why we're here. We have to rise above the political system, outside the political box, and say, constitutionally, this is actually our social compact here. And we're only having to say this again out loud explicitly because you're getting it wrong. Okay, so we have to have an explicit, we could copy and paste this to many other issues, right? But right now we're focusing on the natural resource and environmental issues. We need to focus on the right to a healthy environment, what that means, and the fact that the state, as a trustee of Oregon's natural resources, trustees have certain duties. So trustee is a magic word. As some of you might know, the public trust doctrine, ancient and ongoing concept that the government has a duty to maintain, to protect, to restore the trust that is the natural resources in their care for the benefit of the people and generations to come. Each state gets that at some level. Most states kind of shrug it off or don't really take it seriously because outside of Pennsylvania, and I'll tell you why. Pennsylvania has in their Green Amendment, is what they call it. In their Green Amendment, it's not only about the right to a healthy environment, et cetera, but also they call it out the state is trustee. That enabled them to develop a beautiful case law, body of law, that says, yeah, the government has to be loyal to the people. They can't consider issues when there's a conflict of interest. Conflict of interest could be like industry interests that we were talking about before are hurting people or future generations by way of bad calls and natural resource management. Okay? Trustees have a duty to be impartial. Trustees have a duty to be prudent with what they have. So this is all basic stuff that we thought was happening already, right? But it's not. So we are having to go into Constitution and said, no, really, we need it. And it has to be enforceable, and it has to be self-executing. We can't depend on anything in the political box to manage what the amendment says. It is a relationship between the social compact and every single Oregonian. And we all know why a healthy environment is so important. Life, I won't go in there too far because if you're coming in here, I think there's a basic knowledge and understanding about how important the environment is to us. So that's the quick and dirty about what the amendment's all about, why we're doing it, and the purpose of it. So if we're talking about what listening sessions include, we're going to be talking about your stories. All right, so really quick show of hands. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but how many people here think that they might be willing to tell their story about how an environmental harm, whether it's a climate impact or contaminated water or something along those lines, affected them personally, their community, their region, their economy, whatever? Who has a story to share today? Beautiful. That's a good number. And that will help to truncate my own story. We're going to get to that. So the next thing after we hear stories, we're going to be talking about what remedies have been available and have they worked so far, or will they work? And that is a good segue into, well, let's talk about the amendment, how it would work. Would it have helped in that situation? How would it have worked if the amendment was in place when whatever government decision happened that led to that environmental impact? How would that have looked? So that is the basic portions of today. And very, very quickly, like I said, you can write your story or give it to us orally today. You can say, hey, Mel, let's talk offline, and I will make it happen. You can do it on Zoom, on a phone call, maybe a coffee after or tomorrow, whatever, you know what I'm saying? So, or you can bother these guys. So, you can also say, hey, I would love to tell my story, but I don't really want to be recorded. That is, something we can work out later. And you can say, I would like to give my story without using my name. It's the facts and your input that matter. And what that all looks like is that in July, we'll be compiling and providing a preliminary findings report based on what we've collected over months through June. And then later in the fall, probably much later, we'll have a more comprehensive analysis type of findings report for everyone to see the case for our right to healthy environment. So I think we're all good here with regard to basic respect and taking turns. So I just had to say it out loud. Discussions on the amendment as a concept, not a ballot initiative. I say that because our listening tour has been funded by the Healing Foundation, which was requested or applied for and approved for our Children's Trust. So our Children's Trust is managing the funds that is providing this whole thing. And with that comes the promise that we are only going to be talking about educational issues, not petitioning, not the advocating for your vote to, once it's on the ballot or things like that. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that if someone does ask, we are able to say, yes, the ballot initiative campaign exists. We can talk more afterwards in the back or whatever. Just not associated with the. Any questions about this? Okay, so.
You have a question?
Oh, so sorry. So yes. Sorry.
Specifically Oregonian story?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Thank you. Any other question? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Somebody out there. I exactly. Where? How are you? Across the state, or how many stories? I mean, what do you? I missed the big picture.
Oh yeah. So the grand thing, the Ground Truth Listening Tour is a statewide affair over a matter of months, starting now through June. And we are focusing on Southern Oregon for April. So next week is Roseburg. The week following is the Southern Coastal, like Brookings, School Beach, and Port Orford. And maybe something in Coos Bay later on. But in May, we're going to be focused on Central and Eastern Oregon. We're just trying to save money on logistics as much as possible. And then finally, in the June timeframe, we're going to be coming back to the Valley and the rest of Western Oregon, metro area, coastal. And so that's how and when and why. We're just really connecting to take note of these and capture these stories. I'm happy that since it's recorded, I don't have to feverishly take notes this time, but like I said, this is all on you, and however it makes you feel comfortable. You don't have to provide it today if you don't want to, but we would still love your input. So did I answer your question okay? Okay. Terrific. So, okay. My story. I'll keep it short. I'll try to. I have a Florida story and an Oregon story. Florida story. I was born and raised in Orlando, Florida. I went and had a career in the U.S. Marine Corps. I retired as a major. I was a judge advocate. They sent me to law school. I served the remainder of my time there as a judge advocate, and came back to Florida intending to stay and die there, to be honest. But this is a very big part of what my story has been, my timeline. My favorite fishing hole is the was the Indian River Lagoon, which is a nice, beautiful estuary. It used to be beautiful estuary across 5 different counties on the east coast of Central Florida. And what made it special for me was my relationship to my father, who didn't really go out much. There's a whole other thing there, but the precious time that I had with him outside the house was fishing, or just, it would probably be fishing. And so he taught me everything he knew, and his mom, actually, my grandma, taught me a lot about fishing, and especially like cast netting, all the secret weird things that you have to do to get a perfect circle.
May I have your attention, please? I'll request up to 30 minutes. Let's just close in 2 minutes. Everything will be closed in 30 minutes.
Check. The bottom line is, when we moved back to what is the Space Coast, Brevard County, the lagoon started coughing up blood. It was undergoing lots of more frequent and severe harmful algal blooms. Fish kills, manatees were dying, dolphins were dying, and it was heartbreaking because when we would go check it out, you could see thousands of fish gasping for dissolved oxygen at the top layer of the water, and they were dying in desperation, and it was sad. That, again, I'm keeping it short. So that was an eye opener that brought me into advocacy for clean water, for environmental conservation, and things like that. That really moved me. So when I actually moved to Eugene in 2020, the summer of 2020, you probably can see where I'm going with this. We were welcomed with orange skies for a very long time. And it was weird, or like, is this an Oregon thing? Or, but yeah, it was. I don't think the smoke affected us so much. I mean, we couldn't go outside all the time, but I looked into it later, and it turns out, according to the American Lung Association, that Eugene, of all the cities in the nation, regarding the particulates in the air pollution, Eugene was number 4 worst city in the nation. Eugene, like anywhere in Oregon, I would be like, what? Or anything outside of Detroit or Baton Rouge, or just like, it didn't make sense to me. But yeah. And then the other thing was like, and I put this on our website if you're curious. The U.S. News World Report had Oregon as a bottom scraper for in the nation. We were dead last for air pollution health, I think it was, or pollution health in general. We were also ranked 44 or 46 for something related, but we're on the bottom, Oregon. And that's not publicized. So anyway, all these realities can affect someone and compel them to work their butts off for something that matters, and that's why